All right,
Sorry, I'm just loading up the YouTube.
oh.
Okay, great. All the online stuff. Good evening, everyone. My name is Willow Hamilton, and I am the City of Eugene staff representative for this meeting. Before the chairs convene the meeting, I have a few reminders and introductory words. Tonight we're going to start with our land acknowledgement. This week I'm planning to do the land acknowledgement because I failed to assign it to somebody. But I was planning to have Anya do the next one. She's not here, so I'll have to follow up with her. And then Ash is on deck for the following meeting. So I'm just going to go down the list alphabetical. So I'll follow up with Anya and Ash, I guess. Yeah.
Hey, Samantha, could you grab a chair or two out of the chairs out of the way there?
So tonight for our land acknowledgement, I wanted to share about Kayak Public Transit. Kayak Public Transit is a transit agency that's run by the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Reservation. And they basically identified a need for transit within their community and then expanded it to the Tri-County area. So it's in Hermiston, North Oregon. And they're running a really successful transit operation, and they won like a transit award last year. All their services are free. They have 4 fixed route buses that they run. And beyond serving the people in their reservation, they've started serving like the entire Tri-County community. So just a really cool transit, rural transit assistance that they're doing out there.
Very cool. Thanks, Willow.
Okay. The purpose of the Active Transportation Committee is to provide feedback to staff on projects related to walking and bicycling and to represent the community and constituent interests in transportation planning decisions. Eugene City staff will consider recommendations from the ATC along with input from other members of the public during decision-making processes. Please keep in mind that this meeting is being both recorded and live streamed, meaning it can be viewed on the City of Eugene Transportation Planning YouTube channel both right now and in the future. All verbal and written commentary will be held in the public record. Today's meeting will begin with a 15-minute public comment period. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. When it is your time to speak, please give your name, city of residence, and if you live in Eugene, your ward or just your neighborhood is fine. We welcome and encourage public participation at all our meetings, but due to time constraints, only ATC members and invited presenters can ask questions and participate in discussion after the public comment period is closed. So we'll begin with those joining us online. See if we have anyone. If you're online and interested in giving public comment, please use the raise hand feature and I can promote you. Don't think we do. So I will turn to folks in the room. Looks like going down the list, the first person we have for public comment is Connie.
Hi, I'm Connie Bergman from Amazon Neighborhood, and that's what I'm going to speak about today, aside from, I believe, another pedestrian that got hit in the last few weeks. So we're going to have a neighborhood meeting, the Amazon Neighborhood Association, on April 22nd, Wednesday at 7 o'clock at the Amazon Community Center. We're going to be discussing crosswalks, and we're going to have a presentation from someone you all know, which is Mary Christensen, and maybe Julia with her, and then we'll have another person from another neighborhood who has really gotten specialized in lighting. So that's just going to happen at our meeting. Meeting usually goes from 7 to 8:30. This would be a secondary thing. So we'll have election stuff at the beginning. I don't know how long that will go, but hopefully this will start around 7:30 or 7:45 on Wednesday, the 22nd.
That's 22nd of April.
Yeah, coming up.
Great, thanks, Connie.
Thank you, Connie. Next person I have is Alan.
Is there anyone else on the list that can go first?
Nope, no one else.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Say something else, Connie. I'm looking for my email that I sent out, so I'm gonna have to just.
You have to wing it.
I'm gonna have to wing it a little bit, and maybe next time I can give some more detailed information. So I want to talk a little bit about street classification and safety. As many of you know, streets are classified in terms of above average daily traffic, car traffic that is, and They run from just like a neighborhood street through collectors, arterials, our major arterials and so forth. And what kind of speed limits are allowed depends on, or advised, depends on that classification. Rob can tell you more about this. And so why am I talking about this? There's been a lot of conversation about Hilliard Street, Patterson Street, and those are both classified as arterials. And while they do fit into that category, they also fit into the category of the, like a major collector street. And so the difference is that that can be used to justify either higher or lower speed limits. So one thing when we think about creating safety is about what the street classification is, because that, predicates what is gonna be possible. So just something for you all to be thinking about, some staff to be thinking about. I bring more information next time.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alan.
Alan.
Rob, is there any clear path to changing street classification?
I don't think I've met all of you. I'm Rob Winterfeld, Transportation Planning Manager. I work with Willow. When we're gonna be updating our transportation system plan starting next year. And when the city does a transportation system plan update is typically when you do a look at your street classification. I will say the speed limit on Hilliard in the last year or so was lowered from 30 to 25. I think the bigger issue is like how to just redesign the streets, actually get people to drive 25 or less, not to lower the speed limit down to 20. It's just I drive on the sections between 24th and 30th, and 29th, 30th, particularly bad. But I think we just need to figure out as a city, like how do we redesign Hilliard to be a safe street and get the funding to make that happen. Be happy to talk more about that.
Thanks, appreciate that response.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Okay, I'll just check online real quick one more time. I think we're good there, so that concludes our public comment period.
Very good. Thanks, everyone. And I appreciate the comments from both Ellen and Connie. Talking to a couple of medical professionals, I've become aware that there are a lot more accidents happening out there than are ever reported to the police. There are a lot of injuries, and sometimes people don't show up at the doctor's office for a month later, for another month, and it's it would be nice to be able to figure out how to really collect accurate statistics about how many accidents are really going on, how really happening with pedestrians and bikes. With cars, you're more likely to know if you've got a damaged car.
It's also, you're legally required to file a report if you get in a crash with a car and anyone was injured.
All right, next up, approving the March 2026 meeting summary notes. Hopefully all of you read them. I read them this afternoon and made 3 suggestions to Willow that were really just clarifications. Did anyone else have, and didn't change the content at all, just clarified what the motions, what the actions were in.
Yeah, I sent a clarification to Willow also, so.
You two had one of the same, it was the same clarification.
Oh, okay.
That worked out, you both caught.
Very good. Did anyone else have changes you wanted to see in the minutes? Not, would anyone like to move to accept the minutes?
I actually did have a change to the minutes.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, when we were talking about the.
Just in time.
Yes, just in time. Sorry, yeah, I got a flat tire.
Oh, no.
I had to walk in. For the coordinated plan, one thing we talked to them about was like needing better information on temporary disabilities. So that could either be like through advertising with local doctors or on the website itself. It's not exactly clear, so that would be a great thing to see there.
Was that not captured in the notes?
I didn't see that.
Okay, nice, because I do remember talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other changes need to happen to the minutes? Would anyone like to motion to approve the notes? Second for Carl, all in favor? Yeah. Gotcha, Hollis. All right. Very good.
Awesome.
So we'll move on to the first substantive topic for the meeting. I should say the first scheduled presenter, and Josh Kuzinski is here from Elkhart to talk to us about the Lane Council of Governments data portal, and particularly we asked him to come talk about the bike counters.
Getting your presentation full.
And I should say, I give you more of an I give more of an introduction than that, but I don't actually know any more than that. So I'm very curious to hear what you have to say.
Oh, I'm sorry we kept it a secret. So I'm Josh Kaczynski. I'm an associate transportation planner with Lane Council of Governments. I'm actually a former member of this committee as well, so it's nice to be back in this room. It's shinier than it was when I was here. I see some familiar faces and new faces too, so it's really great to be here. You can go ahead to the next slide. I thought about bringing an acronym jar with me so we could put something in there every time there's an acronym. Transportation planning is full of it. So the MPO is a metropolitan planning organization. That's the organization that the sort of bike count and data portal lives under. And so what that is it's a federally required agency for any area with a population greater than 50,000. And actually, we're what's called a transportation management agency as well. That's an area with a population greater than 200,000. And with that comes some additional access to transportation funds and also more requirements for what you need to do with planning and your reporting. So LCOG has been designated as the Central Lane MPO. That happened back in the 70s. And we're governed by what's called the Metropolitan Planning Committee. Policy Committee? Okay, that's my error. Metropolitan Policy Committee, MPC. And it's comprised of elected and appointed officials from the region. So we have board members from Eugene, Coburg, Springfield, Lane County, Lane Transit District, and representatives from ODOT are there as well. For the city of Eugene, your mayor, Carmen Knudsen, and Councilor Randy Groves are the two representatives on that board, but there are also other committees associated with the MPO that has staff on there, like Rob. So there's a lot of input from the local agencies on what activities we do. So why are we counting bikes and pedestrians? So the number one reason is to understand how people are traveling around the region. We have a lot of history counting where vehicles are going around the region. Counting bikes and peds is something that's a little bit newer. One of the things that we've been trying to focus on, one of the priorities that's been noted by MPC is more safety, which comes as no surprise to, I think, this committee. And so one of the ways this helps with safety is to understand what that exposure is to bicyclists and pedestrians on our transportation network. If we know where they are, we can sort of get a better sense of where we should be putting interventions. The bike ped counts also supports grant funding applications for discretionary grants. Those are funding sources where you have to put in an application and compete against, a statewide or federal sort of setup, as opposed to what's called formula funding, which just comes to the region or the state and we get a sort of set amount that we know about. There are program reporting requirements. CMAQ is congestion mitigation and air quality. That's another acronym. That is a funding source that's intended to help address vehicle congestion and associated air quality impacts. And as part of applications and reporting for that funding source, you need to demonstrate that you're actually reducing congestion and, dealing with air quality. And so having bike ped counts for the area, either before or after, are good and help with that reporting requirement. These counts also help with outcome evaluation. We spend millions of dollars on bicycle and pedestrian projects, and we want to know that they're hitting our goals. Some of those goals can't be measured just by the number of people using them. A safety project, really what you're trying to get at is making the facility safer for people to use, whether more people are using it or not. But it's also helpful to know whether more or less people are using it. With the High Street bicycle way, we did counts both in advance and afterwards on High Street and Pearl Street so that Eugene can understand, are people using High Street to go south or are they continuing to use Pearl Street? Or, you know, really in reality, what is that mix between the two? And then the last reason is actually the kind of the number one reason we're involved as the Central Lane MPO, which is the regional travel model and calibrating that with how that works. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So we have two main kinds of counters, permanent counters and temporary or mobile counters. There's also two secondary types, which are just bicycle only, and then counters that will count users along with bicycles. And so those have like an infrared sensor that can tell anybody going by, and then you can subtract the bicycles going by from that to get a sense of the other users. Most of the data I'm going to show you here is from the bicycle counters because we just have more of that. And so it makes for more interesting visuals. But throughout all of this, when I talk about bicycle or counting bikes, know that we're also counting pedestrians and other users along many of those locations. The advantage of permanent counters is they collect information on a continuous basis. You can get sort of an all year plot of what's going on around the region. And, you know, time of day and time of month. And then you can even look at other factors like how does temperature or precipitation fit in with that? So if you look at this chart on the right here, on the vertical y-axis, you have the number of bicyclists going by the Greenway Bridge on the North Bank path. And on the x-axis, along the horizontal there, you have the temperature. And you can see as temperature goes up, people bicycle more until you hit about 70 degrees, and then it gets a little too toasty for folks, and it kind of levels off there. And we can also cross-tabulate that with weather data and see that for any given day, if it's raining, less people are going to be out regardless of temperature. And in fact, if you look at the year graph over there, you see that dip in the middle of the year. That was June 21st, 2025. We got a ½ inch of rain that day. So there were just fewer people out on the streets and paths. You can go to I did want to say, actually, it works for the next slide too.
Okay.
One of the things with the permanent counters though, is they require like installation, poured concrete, cut into the concrete for the wire loops. And so we're limited on the locations, both with our available dollars, but also sort of facility design. They won't work on every street, and how that infrared sensor needs to be set up for the user counters is, you know, has some requirements to it as well. So we have to be really strategic with where we put these. We're not planning to, nor can we have just a large network of permanent counters all over the place. So when we initially placed these in 2017, 2018, we looked for what we would call bicycle arterials, or at least I call bicycle arterials. These are similar to a vehicle arterial, a main thoroughfare for bicyclists, where we expect to see a lot of them, and where there's not too much else going on. It's just bicycles, so we're not getting noise from vehicles as well. And so a lot of them ended up on paths. We have a couple on Alder Street on the two-way bikeway as well. But we can also place them, you know, with other projects that come online. And we sort of have a unspoken agreement that if a local jurisdiction will put in a permanent counter, if they'll pay for the counter and the installation, we'll pick up the software cost for hosting that data as well as ongoing maintenance. I think you can go to the next slide. So in addition to the permanent counters, we have the mobile counters. We can do multiple locations each year. The chart on the right is not intended to be legible. There are 54 locations that we counted at in 2025. Some of these actually represent two parts of one street. So we counted on Agate Street over by the university where there's a center divider. So we had to use one counter on the northbound side and one counter on the southbound side. But the more places you count, the less often you can count them. And so we deploy for about 2 weeks at each location. And we can get a lot wider coverage. There's a little map on the left there of the count locations we did in Eugene. We also counted in Springfield as well. So the mobile counters are really helpful, in that they let us, count on a lot more facilities, but we get less data each time we do. If you want to go ahead to the next slide. So we have a rotating list of locations for the mobile counters. It was initially put together in 2016, 2017 in order to, again, help with that model calibration. And so what our staff member did, his name was Josh Roll, which I feel like is the best name in transportation planning. We got both the Josh aspect of it and then Roll. He now works for ODOT in their transportation planning and analysis unit. And he did a lot of great work for LCOG when he was with us. What he did is he looked at a bunch of regional streets of all types and tried to pick a representative sample that we were going to be able to like count each kind of street, everything from like a quiet neighborhood street up to busier streets with maybe a striped bike lane. So we could get a sense of how people were using different types of facilities around the region. And then we've generally been just rotating through that list. We've had to make some adjustments over time. The mobile counters also have to be placed carefully with thought. So one of the things you have is this little box that holds all the hardware. That's got to be attached to something so it doesn't just walk away. And over time, those objects have disappeared. Sometimes they've been trees that have been cut down. Sometimes a sign gets moved. Or, you know, the road gets reconfigured or the road surface deteriorates and so it's too rough. Or we just find that a particular location is, for whatever reason, subject to more issues than others. Those tubes are anchored into the road surface, but they can get pulled up by vehicle traffic. And I guess sometimes if there's like a particular freight vehicle or something like that, can just rip those up right away and then it's not a good count location. But as I noted earlier, we can also place them to capture project results. So we can place them before and after, or just after to sort of get a sense of, you know, what's going on with the project. I'm gonna pause real quick because I've been talking for a bit. Any questions on the counter types or the placement of those counters?
Remember, just flip your sign, but and take this so we don't. Sue, and then Carl, you had one?
Yeah,
And
I
then
I was just gonna ask, how many of the permanent counters do you have? And then the second one for the mobile counter, there's still the little hoses across the bike lane, that's what they.
Yeah, so we have 14 to 15 of the permanent bike counters. There's a fuzziness in that number because we had one on the south side of the Fernmeyer Bridge. And then there was an eWeb project, and then we no longer had one on the south side of the Fernmeyer Bridge. Nobody knows where it went, but it did go away. So, and that's bicycle counters and bicycle / user counters. We also have just user counters that are just a box with like an infrared screen that can just count users of any kind. We can't distinguish between bikes, peds, skateboards, whatever. Those we have, I think, 3 of right now because they're smaller and easier to damage or go missing. It's a little bit harder to keep those up and running on a consistent basis. So right now we have 11 working in Eugene.
If you go back to that north bank, doesn't that show both kinds in that picture?
That's correct. Yeah, if you want to go back 2 slides.
Oh, sorry.
That's forward 2 slides. Yeah, there you go. So what you have here is, and I'm sorry for folks online, you have this little pole here that's got an infrared sensor going across. And then right here, you can see a diamond pattern. These are induction loops that detect as a bike goes over. And so this is one that does both. The counters on Alder Street, for example, just have the loops in the ground because as an on-street facility, it was a little bit harder to do that sort of user count setup.
Thank you. Josh, I was wondering how sophisticated are these detection devices? Give you a quick example, like can it detect like if I have a bike trailer or if I assume it can tell the difference between like multiple bicycles going across at the same time, like if they're going all parallel.
Yeah, so they're fairly sophisticated. It depends a little bit on which one of the counters we're talking about. The technology has improved over time. And so we have one of these mobile counters that will actually count both bicycles and vehicles and is really good at like capturing the difference. We have another, most of the other ones are really good at bicycles and not so great at things like skateboards or, for example, a bicycle that's like a long tail with like a longer wheelbase. Sometimes those don't count as well. But they continue to improve them. When we get to the end of the presentation, I can talk about some of the newer technology options that we might be able to upgrade with if we're interested.
Thank you. Alan?
What? You.
Why two strips?
That's a great question. So, the way it tells the difference between a, bike and a vehicle or something else is the, sort of distance between the wheels. And so the two strips help both with that and direction. So with this deployment here, where it's going across the full road surface, if this one at the bottom gets hit first and then the one above it, you know, the bike's going this way, which is maybe southbound. I don't know. I can't tell from this picture. And then, likewise, the other direction.
With the give the morning require power.
Do the fixed ones require power?
Yeah, so, all of the counters require, sorry.
Or batteries.
Or batteries?
Right, so we have one of the permanent counters that's wired into like the electrical system. All the rest of them require batteries. These boxes have batteries in them, and then the other counter locations have a variety of different battery types that we have to replace. That's another good question because the two counters on Older Street right now are, we had some problem with the battery connections. And so they're currently down as we figure that out.
So if you had this two strip scenario, if you had bikes coming from either direction that did it at the same time, does it have the ability to distinguish
It
that that's
counts
two bikes?
kind of in the millisecond, so it is very good. If you had like a tight packed peloton for some bicycle race, then it would probably have some trouble. And I think that's similar with the infrared counters as well. We deployed on the University of Oregon campus in a couple of locations, and just at class change time, it has a lot of trouble reading it because it's like a solid wall. And it's like, I can't tell how many people are going by.
Yeah. So, I guess my one other question is that for these permanent ones, you know, it's always problematic having something that never changes because the world changes and then you're left to say, so like we've got 13th as an example, which, since, been built since 2017 or whatever, when there wouldn't have been any reason to think about there being a protected bikeway there. Is it built into the system anywhere that I know that once they're installed, it's hard to move, but that, these needs when the needs change, that there's a way to, move to new arteries, or does it rely on getting funding to expand the system?
Yes, it requires getting funding to expand the system. The permanent counters really aren't movable. We are drilling into the ground. The hardware that does the counting itself could probably be moved, but it's a construction project to then drill into the ground. And the locations we picked, in my opinion, are quite good. The vast majority of them are, well located. And I'd rather see us, either take advantage of the mobile counter, because we can deploy the mobile counters on 13th Avenue and have, in order to gather those counts, to understand. And maybe it's actually a good idea at this point to advance, to the next slide, because I think I have something that illustrates this. So this is a mobile count deployment on High Street this past year, so after the two-way cycle track went in. And so these are the counts we observed over about a week and a half. You can see a gap there where the tubes got pulled up and had to be redeployed. If we just went by this count that we have, we'd say 509 bicycles went both directions on an average day. If you go to the next slide, though, you can see that we can actually fill in the sort of trend data based on that permanent count profile. It's a little bit hidden by the Zoom thing up there, but you can see where this time period fits on that overall scale, and then use that to calibrate the few weeks of data we do have. And so what you actually end up with is a calculated value of 382. It's less, but it's more representative of the entire year. For those locations we had deployed on June 21st, when we got a ½ inch of rain, they're not going to be counted against because there was that drop, because the calibration from the all year counts can be used to sort of account for that. So I would say that in a few key locations, expanding permanent counters makes a lot of sense. But the mobile counters, I think, let us be a lot more nimble and go where the interest is for the next planning project or, you know, model changes.
I know Peter was about that. Oh, and Kelly also had questions. Do you want to take a couple more and then go on?
Yeah, sure. I don't know how much time I have.
You have till 6:20. So,
Okay.
but how much more time do you have prepared presentation?
Well, I was gonna talk about the model a little bit and then, future count program opportunities. We don't have to talk about the model.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. This is, as you remember from your time here, it's a community that brings lots of questions, but go ahead, Kelly, and then Peter.
And my question might be too early in the presentation, and maybe you'll answer this down the line. But I was wondering, so you're putting these, maybe this is just outside the scope, you're putting these on these bike arterials. Is there any way that you would use the mobile counters for places that there's anecdotal, hey, we have a lot of people going across here, but it's not necessarily like a bike path? You know, like, so at a major intersection, or like, you know, people going down 18th or something. Is there room in the project for that?
Yeah, so the mobile count program, largely what we do is follow those set locations, but when a local jurisdiction like Eugene says, hey, we want to take a look at this spot, Springfield just asked us to get counts on the new Mill Street facility, which is fantastic. And we've been doing counts for them on that Virginia Daisy corridor that they're also putting improvements on. So, you know, we need to find that balance between counts for projects and counts that will serve the model. But I think we're willing to be as flexible as possible to get those locations that are of interest.
Yeah, just maybe helping to identify spots in the future that need improvement because there's X number of bikes or peds or whatever crossing it every day, but it's not currently in the like, this is a bike path area or something.
Yeah, crossings are a little bit more difficult to deploy on, so it kind of depends where. It's a lot easier to sort of get that cross section, I guess might be the word, where it's just sort of one direction of travel. But I'm not actually the one who goes and puts these out. Kyle Overstake is one of our GIS folks, and he's been deploying these for over a decade now. So he's I think the better one to answer whether a particular location would be like a good spot or not.
I've been reading River Road survey data all day, and there's like a dozen comments about e-bikes on bike paths, and I was wondering, can any of these measure speed?
The ones we currently have cannot.
Are there ones that can?
Yes, so, it's the very last slide, I think. It's the second to last slide.
Future technology.
The future
Okay,
technology.
talk about it later.
Okay.
Yes, and I have a question related to additional things as well, but we can wait on that, so. Ellis, did you have another question right now?
What,
What,
where's,
where's,
oh,
where's the power?
on. How can the real,
How does it do with wheelchairs?
That's a good question. So I don't believe the bicycle counters would count a wheelchair. The user counter would, but it wouldn't have a way of distinguishing a wheelchair from any other person or object going by. Again, some of the newer camera-based technology would be able to distinguish.
where, what, oh,
Where's the one with power?
Oh, don't know that off the top of my head. I apologize.
Okay, well, how about, Josh, if you could maybe pick 5 more minutes worth of stuff from your slides to go through. We're definitely
Okay.
interested in the new technology, maybe leave another 5 minutes for questions.
Yeah, why don't we zoom through the travel model stuff? Really, what that's all about is one of the requirements for the regional planning, and our regional transportation plan is that we do some evaluation of what the project list is going to do in terms of impact on the region. Maybe go back one slide. So for example, on the right there, that's an output from the travel model showing vehicle miles traveled per capita in the future based on the project list in that plan. Going forward, local jurisdictions are now going to be by the state required to demonstrate that their plans end up with a reduction in VMT in the future year. And again, that's going to rely on the travel model. If you go to the next slide real quick, I apologize for jumping back and forth. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the travel model. And to know whether we've actually gotten all of that right, we use both motor vehicle and bicycle counts to calibrate it, to say, okay, we think this is where people are traveling today. How does that line up with what we're actually observing? And if it doesn't, we go back and tinker with it until it gets as close as we can. This is going to be more important in a future update to the travel model that maybe if you guys are super interested in travel modeling, I can come back to the committee and talk about. But why don't you go forward a couple of slides and we can talk about future technology. So the initial counters were installed in 2017, the majority of them in 2018. They have an average of a 10-year lifespan, depending on the location and some other factors. We have one on the Fern Ridge path that is basically underwater at certain times of the year, and that's not great for electronics. They are made pretty waterproof, but not completely submerged. What we did is we went to the MPC and asked for some funding for replacement of the current counters, and at the suggestion of our local jurisdictions, also included a little bit of extra money for expansion, maybe 1 or 2 locations, new locations in each jurisdiction. And there are now a wider variety of technology options that are more than just tubes and infrared sensors. One of the most intriguing ones are the camera-based counters. These are AI cameras, and so there may be some amount of skepticism or concern we need to work through before we use those. But what they allow is counting of all mode types, bicycles, pedestrians, skateboards, scooters, wheelchairs, and motor vehicles. Bend is actually using but they have one now and they're gonna deploy some more on all of the bridges across the Deschutes because it's a like confined space where they can like get screen counts across the city. And so with the camera deployment, they can count everything with just the one counter. The company we're working with, EcoCounter, has just come out with a radar-based counter, which is supposed to do a lot of the things the camera-based counters can do without, the faces or anything, which may help with some privacy concerns. It's brand new, so I can't say how well it works. And one of the other options is display signage. So on the upper right there, there's an example of one of their mini displays where you can provide instant feedback information. We have all this data on our portal, but you have to like log onto a website to get that information. And this kind of encouragement can be helpful for the program. So that's a little bit about the options, but I'm also happy to answer questions about that.
Terrific. I would say I was just in the biking in the Netherlands and on some of their bike arterials, they've got these big panels showing how many people have gone by today, how many people have gone by this year. And it's cool. It's good information. I think cyclists like seeing that information as they go. Okay, the signs are going up, Sue, and then Kelly.
But, we, I think, have the sense that bicycle use is not going up, it's actually going down. Is that true? Is that what your data show? Or?
Yeah, it's fuzzy. I'll just say that it's fuzzy. There are locations that have seen increased bicycle usage. There are locations that have seen decreased bicycle usage. There are locations that see usage go up in 22 and down in 23 and back up in 24. And so I would say from the commute information we have, both from the census and the state recently did like a household activity travel survey. And there's just a lot more work from home because it's a lot easier to work from home. We have, Zoom and other technologies that allow us to do that. And that seems to have eaten into transit, bicycling and walking modes more than it has people driving. So I would say perhaps there is a decline in bicycling, but it's probably within the margin of error at this point. So it's difficult to tell a trend. And 2020 with the pandemic and lockdown, and it's been really disruptive to the overall travel patterns. And so it's difficult to tell whether this is a new normal or whether it's just there was a significant drop and now we're building back up. So yeah, I apologize for not giving you a straight answer, but I don't know that there is one just in the data.
Interesting. Kelly.
I know that there's been a lot of concern with flock cameras. And so something like this ending up in getting used in ways that we wouldn't love. And so I'm wondering what sort of oversight is there around the decision making between like, we're gonna use a camera that uses AI versus radar. How are you, where is the oversight there? Because I know that someone like myself, I don't want to end up on that camera. I mean, I haven't done anything wrong, but like, I'm concerned about my privacy, right? And so there's all sorts of reasons people would want to know whether they're being recorded that way.
Right. Well, so one thing I will note about this technology is it doesn't record. It counts in the moment and immediately throws the footage away. So it's different from other camera-based systems. The company is French, and so they are required to follow EU privacy requirements. And actually, if you look at this picture, all of the faces are blurred. They are just that way, even when you plug into the live feed. But that being said, oversight would be by the local jurisdiction. The LCOG or the Central Lane MPO, we don't own the property these are going in on. We would work with whatever jurisdiction, Eugene, Springfield, Coburg, Lane County, whatever their privacy requirements are for data. And so if Eugene had a policy where they didn't want these cameras, then they wouldn't go in Eugene without any kind of approval.
Yes, I'm sure you wouldn't want the whole flock camera controversy to descend upon you. So I'm sure everyone in this room is thinking, I know exactly a place I think LCOG should be counting. And you probably don't want all of us individually counting you and saying, here's where we want, here's where we would like to count. I mean, how does LCOG, you're getting these new cameras and you've got the ones you set up temporarily and you may be picking another couple of permanent locations. What's the process? And is there an opportunity for people who bike or wheel or scoot or whatever a lot to say, hey, this would be a good spot?
Yeah, just to correct one thing, we're not getting cameras. It's an option.
I mean, sorry, not cameras, counters. I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
counters, not cameras.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
So we would work with the representatives on our MPO, policy board. So that would be Rob or other folks on his team. And so I don't know that there's a direct, because there's engineering that goes into permanent counter installation. I don't know that there's a direct route to me to get it installed somewhere, but working through your committee process, and Eugene may even choose to bring it to this committee for recommendations at the point where Eugene decides to put in a counter. We've identified funding, but until Eugene says we want a counter here, we're not gonna push one on anyone. For the mobile count locations, I think you could work through Willow probably to request a count location. The Pearl Street counts we did, we ended up doing in part because I was on the committee at the time and I was curious about it. And so I can't remember if I reached out to Kyle directly or did it the right way and worked through city staff. But that's one of the reasons that location ended up counting is because someone said, hey, I'm interested in this, and it aligned with city priorities.
I'm gonna let Sue ask the last question, but real quickly, the quick conclusion for High Street, Pearl Street, did High Street displace traffic on Pearl Street? Did you see a lot more
I
traffic?
did
on High
not pull that for this presentation.
No.
Invite me back someday and
All right.
I'd be happy to share.
Street? Very good. Is the information available online somewhere?
Yes, last slide. Maybe last slide.
Yeah.
Yes, so, on the left there is, the link directly to our data portal that has all the counts linked on it. On the right, there is more information about, the regional transportation plan and the other activities we do. If you want an easier URL to navigate to this stuff, we are thempo.org. And that'll direct you to our
The
website.
MPO?
The MPO.
Of all the MPOs in the country? you got
Apparently,
the
we were
MPO?
early adopters
Wow.
of the internet. There is a data portal button and link directly from that website that'll get you to where we are.
Very good. Last question to Sue and then.
I was just wondering, it's not uncommon for me to, I'll be riding down the street and say, oh, there's one of those counters and the hose is cut. Or do they get checked frequently enough that I don't need to report that to anybody or?
No, we would love you to report it.
Who do I report it to?
Me, you, my emails at the bottom of the data portal, Kyle Overstakes. I don't know if we have his email. He's the one I would email to go out and fix that. But I think what is our npo@lcog-or.gov is the general email on our website. You can blast anywhere and we'll get the information. So we do our best to check up on them, but because we have 5 locations deployed at any moment, we can't necessarily be everywhere at once, and we'd love to hear about it.
Well, thanks so much. This
Thank
is
you.
awesome. This is great. This came about because of the application to the MPO for money for bike counters. And it was kind of like, well, geez, we don't know anything about how to get placed or where the data goes. So thanks for coming to clear all that up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it, Josh.
All right, next up is, Willow, you're on next,
Polk Street
provide
update.
Polk Street updates. Yeah.
Awesome. Speaking of bike counters, Catherine reached out to Kyle Overtake at LCOG and asked for bike counts on Polk Street, because right now there are none. So in May, they're gonna deploy 3 different temporary bike counters on Polk Street at 3 different locations, so we can get that data, to inform, you know, a future project, if we put a future project on there, or understanding just current use. So that's kind of cool. Okay, I have 2 updates. I have 2 updates for Polk Street. Reminder that the city of Eugene is exploring adding bike lanes to Polk Street from 18th to 2nd. Polk Street's key north-south connector between the Whitaker and Friendly. We have recently published the parking report. If you saw that, we sent out an email. It was also in the InMotion newsletter. The parking report, we collect parking counts, not just for Polk Street, but anytime we're looking at removing parking, on-street parking. And it helps us understand parking use. When and where is parking being used? How does parking vary along a street, especially like Polk Street, 2nd to 18th is a really big section. So how does it vary between all those different sections? What is the current parking demand? And then we do side street counts as well to understand if we were to remove on-street parking, could that demand be displaced to side streets? Would the side streets have space for that? So that's one of the other things, reason why we count side streets. So we did a Polk Street parking study. Several people in this room helped us collect data on that. Thank you to all of you. It's definitely an undertaking to do parking counts. It's a manual process. Staff and volunteers go out there and they count each parking spot. Hollis gave us several of those, as did Sue and Peter and many others. So with all of those parking counts, we found that on average, Polk Street between 2nd and 18th is about 25% parked up. So a quarter of the parking spaces are used on Polk Street. That percentage varies a lot block by block. That means out of the 243-ish available parking spaces on Polk Street at any given time, around 61 of those spaces are being used. This is a data chart that I recognize as maybe hard to read from here, but some things that I'll point out. It's going from north down to south here, and this is just one block at a time. This first chart is parking use on Polk Street. The second chart is parking use on side streets. Some interesting things to point out in this chart. Between 3rd and 4th, between 4th and 5th, between 5th and 6th, we see 40, 45, 51% parking use. So that means about half of the parking spaces are being used at any given time. And then as you go south, you start to see a block with 5%, a block with 2%. So some blocks are barely parked up at all at any given time. You're seeing maybe 1 spot being used out of the 10 or something like that. So it varies a lot block by block. Unfortunately, you can't just put a bike lane in one block and not in the next block. So we have to sort of take that data and figure out, you know, what that means. And then this other chart, you'll see these high percentages because this is average of available spaces. So this one's not counted. We counted how many spots are being used, but that's not really what we're asking for side streets. We're trying to understand how much room is there. So between 3rd and 4th Avenue, on average, there are 9.8 cars parked there. On 4th Avenue, the side street, there are about 31.5 open spaces on average. So we can do that math to be like, okay, could 10 cars fit on side street? Well, there's 31 spaces, so that's a yes. So we kind of go through and see, do the side streets on average have room to accommodate the displaced parking? And how much space is there? So there's certain side streets like 11th, for example, that has 88% of the spaces are on average available. Typically, if you're a data person, you would know that medians tend to be better than averages. It was much easier for us to calculate averages than medians, but Catherine did go through and calculate a couple medians and found that they were almost exactly the same as the averages. So we were like, okay, well, that alleviates us a little bit. So just a sort of note there for anyone who's worried about why we're using averages instead of medians. They're pretty much the same for this data. So that's the findings of the parking report. If you want to get even more into the weeds, there's stuff in the parking report like what do the evening counts look like? What do the weekdays versus weekend counts look like? Because it does fluctuate depending on the time of day and time of week. So you can get in there and read that as well. And then all of the raw data is at the end of the report if anyone wants to look at that. Okay, the other update I have for Polk Street is our intersection study. We contracted with a consultant, an engineering consultant called DKS. They ran an intersection study for us. Reminder that when looking at Polk Street, we were like, the parking lane is one thing, but when you get to the intersections, that parking lane goes away and it becomes a turn lane at all of the signalized intersections. If we remove the parking and put a bike lane, what do we do at the intersections? Do we drop, like, can we get rid of those turn lanes? In order to put the bike lane, like that's like a really significant thing that we have to understand, or do we need to keep those turn lanes and does the bike lane sort of peter out and then it becomes a mixed use environment at the intersections and then the bike lane picks back up when you get through the intersection? So that's what we were trying to understand. We looked at 5 intersections, 6th, 7th, 11th, 13th, and 18th. Those are the 5 signal intersections on Polk Street. Each of them has a turn lane. So this is Polk at 6th. Here's where there's the through lane and the left turn lane to get onto Polk. And then here there's a through lane and a right turn lane to start to get onto 6th from Polk. So this would be the space where if we need to put a bike lane here, we'd have to have a through and left turn lane in order to create space for a bike lane. Same on 7th, but different direction.
So, Will Kelly,
Yes.
So the light at 6th and Polk and 7th and Polk is so short. Do you guys take into account that, which like, you know, like two cars get through
Uh-huh.
and the light changes, and then
Uh-huh.
you're sitting there for a long time.
Yeah.
And so for a bike or a ped, same thing, you're begging the button,
Uh-huh.
right? So do you guys take that into account at all, the like time people are gonna have to wait to get across these pretty major streets?
Yeah, so that was part of the traffic analysis was existing timing. When they gave us the report, just to like zoom out for a sec, they gave us the intersection report. We have not made any decisions on this project or what to do with the intersections. And we have gone back to DKS with requests for further analysis. Your point exactly, like what would happen if we change the signal timing?
Yeah.
Because it is really short. And so if it's really short and now there's more cars in a single travel lane instead of 2 lanes,
Or bikes
Or-
in the middle
or
of
bikes
that.
in the middle, like what does that all look like? And it's all modeling, so nothing's like a perfect science, but we have sent it back to DKS for further analysis. And I can sort of review what that analysis is.
All 5. Alright,
Are all 5 at lights?
no,
Are all 5 lights
I just.
adjustable?
All 5 lights are adjustable, yeah. We've
Oh.
talked about how some lights, like, we can't give it multiple commands, but just the simple, like, how long is it green for, that's adjustable. Yeah. Okay, Polk and 11th, Polk and 13th, and then Polk and 18th. So I just wanted to get quick aerials of these. They all look almost exactly the same. They all have turn lanes. Why did we have turn lanes to begin with? If we didn't have turn lanes there, then it would just be one really wide lane because it was parking. You can't have parking all the way up to the intersection. So it's just best practice to use the lane space and allocate the lane space. That's why there are turn lanes. So this is existing intersection operations. This is a little wonky, but operating standard in Eugene is that our level of service is E. We basically try to make sure all of our signals are meeting at least E. The one thing that can be below that is F. If a signal intersection is F, that doesn't meet our operating standard. So we're always trying to get them at E, the minimum. Currently, Polk at 6th, 7th, 11th, 13th, 18th are AA, BBC for AM peak hours. This is the main, yeah.
You can keep
Oh,
going, and I'll
okay.
just say, well, just the level of service, like the letter, it's just basically the amount of delay that the vehicles experience. So that's why you see 18 has 28 seconds of delay, it's a C, whereas 6 is only 6 seconds as an A. So that's really what it's based on.
Yeah, thanks. They kind of relate to each other. So in the morning, people have about 6 seconds of delay. That intersection's an A. In the afternoon, they have, about 10 seconds of delay. That puts it at a B. The 18th intersection is the busiest intersection on this corridor. It's kind of interesting that it just gets busier as you go south. That's what we saw with our volumes as well. So this is existing conditions.
It's because 18th is the only street that goes through all of town,
Mhm.
south of 6 and 7.
Yeah, totally. And 18th is like a whole other can of worms that one day we need to address. Okay, so I just switched over. This was table 2 with the existing conditions. This next one is table 3. We call it build conditions, but what that means is if we were to, what we're asking is if we removed parking lanes, or sorry, if we removed turning lanes, what would happen to the level of service for people driving? We didn't see much change in the level of service. So if I flip back to this, AABBC, AABBC, so the level of service remained the same if we were to remove the turning lanes, which came to my team as a bit of a surprise. Polk Street is not a major driving thoroughfare. It is an important access route, but we're not seeing super high volumes on there that would be impacting these. This level of delay is averaged across all of the vehicles going through that intersection. So what that means is the north-south on Polk Street is being averaged with all the cross traffic here. And since there's a lot of cross traffic this way, it does bring that average like down for delay. So basically what we're looking at is kind of a green light, like we could probably remove the turn lanes, but we want additional analysis because the signal timing is really important. And right now the greens are so short that if we just pulled those turn lanes, didn't change the signal timing, it could create backup. And we don't want to do that. So how can we adjust the signal timing so that it's working the best as it can for everyone? And this is all contingent on if we decide to move forward with the bike lanes project at all. So that's, it's all sort of coming together. We have pieces, but no decision has been made. Eventually, staff will put together a memo to leadership. We'll say here are our findings, here's our staff recommendation, and then leadership ultimately makes a decision on how the project moves forward. I think that's my update on Polk Street.
Is leadership council?
Yeah. who
Leadership
who
is not
that?
council. Thank you for asking. Leadership is the city engineer. So right now that's Doug. What's Doug's last name? Singer. I always get Doug Singer and Doug Rubel mixed and I can't remember which one's which. Doug Singer is the city engineer right now. And depending on the way that Doug feels about the project, it could escalate higher to the public works director or even city manager or assistant city manager. So that's as high as it could go. Yeah, good question, but not council. Council doesn't typically make decisions on transportation
No.
projects.
Do we have a public works director now?
We have an interim public works director. Yeah, Lacey Ridsdal is the interim public works director. Mhm.
Well, thanks, Willow.
Yeah, just want to keep you all in the loop on where we're
Yeah,
at. with Polk Street.
No, it's good to know, and will be continue to be interested in how it moves forward. We're right at 6:35, which is right when our break is scheduled.
Yay.
So, excellent timing. We take 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at 6:40, and we've got a lot to go over from 6:40 to 7:20. And as Rob said, when he got up earlier, he's the top guy in the transportation planning realm
Team.
here, transportation planning team. We initially asked him to come here to talk about a couple of things going on out on Terry Street, way up in the northwest corner of the city. But he said as long as he was coming, he could talk about other things, so we put other things on the list. The capital project subcommittee came up with a couple of things to ask about, and me and Josh had a couple of things to ask about. So now there's a long list, and hopefully we'll get to touch on all these topics at least a little bit. And a lot of them are
Whatever
just
you guys wanna
status
talk about.
updates, because they're things we, hear about over the years, and now it's like, well, whatever happened to, and hopefully you're able to tell us whatever happened. But we can start with Terry Street.
Okay, so Terry Street, this is the Bethel neighborhood here, and this is Terry Street here, and it's the northern, it goes further north than any other street, and then it just ends. And it has bike lanes on it. I don't know what the classification is, maybe Alan knows. It could be a minor arterial or major collector, it's probably either a minor arterial or a major collector. This is Golden Gardens Park here. And just for a sense of scale, this is like 4,000 feet wide and like 2,500 feet north from north to south. So it's a pretty big park, and the city has plans to make that a multi-use facility that would be a regional draw for like sports tournaments, but it would have a lot of other cool things in it. It's also like super expensive, and we only have a fraction of the amount of money that we need to build it. So, so there's, one thing, does anyone here live in that neighborhood? Do we have any ATC members?
I don't think we have any
Need a
Bethel.
Bethel member.
We do need a Bethel.
So, this area, we were talking earlier about like how 18th is the only east-west street, and there's some parts of Eugene that just don't have like good connectivity. I think this is one area that really has poor connectivity, because you have the Beltline here, not that many streets cross Beltline. This neighborhood also has a lot of manufactured home parks that really cut down on the connectivity. This part of the neighborhood is actually better, I think, in that regard, but if you live out here somewhere and you want to get to Highway 99 or the airport or the River Road neighborhood, the only way to go is a Barger, and that street, it gets clogged up. I think it leads to a lot of frustrated drivers and bad decision making. Historically, we had heard that the school, there's not as many schools over here as there used to be. Bethel School is just close to some of them, but historically, we had heard that parents didn't feel safe with their kids, even just like walking along Barger, even though it has sidewalks and bike lanes. So part of the idea is like, let's get more connectivity to this neighborhood by extending Terry Street up to Clear Lake Road up there, which is a county road, but the idea is eventually to make it a city street. And north of Clear Lake Road, I don't have it in this photo, but the city has goals for having more like industrial and similar types of development. Now that area was, both the Golden Gardens Park and the area north of Clear Lake were brought into the urban growth boundary when we did Envision Eugene, and I think the only time the UGB was ever expanded was to bring that area into Eugene. So we haven't really seen any development yet up there. Why don't we go to the next slide? So we hired an engineering firm called DKS, which I think is the same firm that did the public study, to do a feasibility study looking at what alignment we should use to extend Terry Street north. So this is the park, and you can just see, all the different ball fields it would have. It would have like more of a neighborhood park element down here closer to the neighborhood. That looks like tennis and pickleball, soccer fields. I think there's also, this is just like a draft of the park, but I think there were also some pump tracks and bike facilities in it too. And it would have shared use paths going through it. You can see the gray here would be the shared use paths. So we were looking at some different alignments. One of the things too was that Clear Lake Road is a high crash facility, and we really don't recommend, the parks folks were gonna put a driveway up to Clear Lake, and we're like, whoa, that's maybe not such a good idea. Because people drive really fast on it. And so we're instead looking at extending Terry Street up to Clear Lake and having a roundabout there, and then having the park tie into Terry rather than go up to Clear Lake. So that's not set in stone, but that's something we're talking with the Parks and Open Space folks about. And another interesting thing here is that this L-shaped parcel here, and then these three other parcels are all owned by the Bethel School District. Because I don't know if they still plan to put a school up there, but at one point they did. So why don't we go to the next slide? So this is now rotated 90 degrees, so it's now the north is to the right. So this is the alignment that we're leaning towards, and this is all very preliminary. But this is the alignment we're leaning towards that would, rather than cutting through the park, would go along the Bethel School District property. And probably what we're talking about is maybe not, this is a private property here, or maybe leaving that alone and just acquiring the property from Bethel. And then, like I said, hopefully the park driveway would just tie into this and access the park without having their own park driveway to Clear Lake. Also, one of my thoughts was too, is we can save, since they're really short on money, is to save them money that they don't have to build this long driveway. So we'll see how that goes. And then, did I have any more slides after this? Or is this
You
it?
had a roundabout close up.
Oh, yeah, this is just a close up of what the roundabout looked like. But why don't we go back one? So I think part of the question is like, what kind of bicycling facility should we have along Perry Street? And that's really up in the air. I mean, we could extend bike lanes north, we could make them protected bike lanes. Another thought would be to, I think at least along the park property to have it be a shared use path on one side. Originally we were going to, I think if we had the alignment come down here more, it might make sense to just have a shared use path on one side and not a bike lane on the other side. If clearly we're running along the park the whole way, but we'd have to have like a raised crosswalk or some transition to bring the bikes across. But since this alignment would only run along the park for a short distance, it might make sense to just have the bike facilities on each other on the side for the northbound and southbound. So I think that's all up in the air. We're just at the point we received funding. Josh earlier was talking about the Central Lane NPO. We received a couple $1 million from the NPO. That's not going to probably be enough to build this, so it'll be enough to do the engineering work and to acquire the right of way that we need to build it. But we're going to have to identify some additional funding to actually construct it. So, I think starting that money doesn't even kick in for a couple of years. So we have plenty of time to start engaging with the community and we probably won't even start that for another year or two. Start engaging with the community, talking about what do the pedestrian and bicycle facilities look like. Things like that. We've even talked about maybe, if there was a park driveway coming in here, maybe having another smaller roundabout here. Because we don't want this to be a high-speed street. But like, how can we make Perry Street a livable street, not a high-speed street? Maybe have some speed cushions, some kind of vertical deflection. Those are some of the things we're talking about. So I'm happy to answer any questions or any comments that you have.
All right, Peter is up first.
Yeah, so if this isn't gonna be like public lands, like where the Bethel School District is currently owns it. Is there any talk about like what that's gonna be, residential, industrial, anything?
Honestly, I don't know what their plans are.
Yeah.
So I think that'll probably come up in our conversations with them.
Yeah, because I imagine that might change what the cross section should be.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear from them, like, do they still plan to put a school there, or do they plan to sell it?
Yeah.
Sometimes school districts, they just like to bank their land because they don't know what the future holds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Kelly, then Carl, then Nancy.
Thank you for coming. I was wondering about connectivity between Perry and then eventually, and like Fern Ridge. And how would people potentially connect over there?
Oh, you mean Furnace Lake, not the Furnace Path, is that what you're saying?
Well, doesn't the path? No,
Mean the furniture path,
the path.
yeah.
It's
It's
really pull up Google Maps.
I was just gonna do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, Google
Just
Maps is always
because
helpful. for
You
these
could
conversations.
see people wanting to access this park from, I'm in the Churchill area,
Sure.
and people coming up the Fern Ridge path and then being able to get up to this other park, like you could see it being a neat. It'd be cool to be able to get there on a bike. So it goes to that Meadowlark Prairie, right?
Oh, yeah, I can actually pull that up.
I can point it out on the screen. Ooh, or not, yeah.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm actually gonna we're gonna look at this using our new.
I guess my question for you is, are you thinking about how you're connecting to something like the Fern Ridge Track?
We haven't had that conversation yet, but I think that's the question. I think the question is, how do we do that? Like, how's that gonna work? So here's the Fern Ridge path only goes to here.
Yep.
And if you could just drag that, and then the park is all the way up there. I mean, so that's really a big delta. So I think the question is, someday there has been maybe talk about extending the furnished path. That's something we'll talk about as part of the transportation system plan. I mean, that would be really expensive and maybe more of a recreational. I mean, it could tie into some of the neighborhood here. So
Here's the road where the clicker is,
Yeah, down here, there's.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
Terry.
it goes.
So you, yeah,
right,
Yeah,
so you could have bike lanes if your bike
Yeah.
lane goes all the way that
and
way.
Terry Street
Yeah,
has
those are
bike lanes on
bike
it,
lanes.
so yeah.
that already exists, although
Yeah.
it's not particularly friendly, maybe you're not on like bike lanes, that's not a particularly friendly stretch to cycle.
It's not protected.
Yeah.
We could look at making
Much traffic.
I think there's some weird chicanes on it that people might, even though generally they're considered an enhancement that may not feel good, so we can.
I actually did a weird rotate of, oh my god.
Right.
Hour lot. Move on to Carl's question, or are you trying to point something out there? Will?
No, I'm
Let's
just
move
trying
on.
to pan and then deciding to rotate instead. So-
We could just go back to the sliders.
Yeah.
Carl, what's up?
Yeah, first of all, I want to give credit to Rob, who was very persuasive and got me to join ATC, so credit to Rob, thank you. But my question was actually, if you could go back 2 slides, I saw there were, are the 2,
This one?
yeah, so Rob, were you proposing that it's one or the other, like there could be one more direct path to go, that goes from the park and Terry Street, or is it like, it could be possible that both of these could exist at the same time?
No, we would only pick one of the alignments.
One of them. okay.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the parks folks probably want us to pick the one to the
Yeah.
west, because they know that doesn't cut through. Like, the areas where they would like to see park.
Okay.
Because there might also, I'm not sure of this, but I think this cross section here is actually wetlands.
Yeah.
And so it could be more problematic, because the street would have to go through wetlands, which is issues, so whereas if we just go straight north.
So there are pros and cons or even obstacles for each of them. So if you're looking for feedback, I mean, I'm always a pro person when it comes to having some kind of shade or greenway kind of situation, even if
Yeah.
it takes me a little bit longer, just because on the days where I really need it, that really helps a
Yeah.
lot. So
Yeah.
if that's feedback, I'm like.
Well, street trees are definitely something that
Yeah.
we integrated to street design.
And there are great straight trees along the part of Terry
Oh, okay.
leading up to this.
So it actually being on that street, because it just looks so desolate to me.
I know, right, yeah.
Yeah, beyond the end, it's just, I think it's fields, but up to that point, it's good.
Can I ask one more quick question?
Sure, and then over to
Yeah,
next.
no, yeah. Is this, and I think I heard someone say that this could be part of a plan to eventually get to the airport.
There are plans to continue Terry all the way up to Airport Road.
Oh, okay, great.
That I'm a little dubious of that, just because you have to get through some of those industrial properties. Just as an aside, Lane County, I'm pretty sure they got funding from NPO to do a safety study of Green Hill Road. So that's something else that's gonna be happening.
Nancy.
Yeah, my question was just about shade,
Okay,
that, especially when you don't know what the Bethel School District is gonna be doing and you've got private property on the other side. That I think it's really important to prioritize shade.
Okay.
That for most people, if they're going out here, this is gonna be a distance ride. And it would make a really huge difference if there was shade.
And Hollis, did you have a question? I saw your tag started to go up.
when will you go up to the airport? It's no idea, I have no idea, it's off in the future,
Long term.
yeah.
Okay. So, I have a question. And maybe the best way to do it if we go back. Another slide. Yeah, this one. So this area. In a way already has some great. bicycle connectivity, things that weren't mentioned earlier. You have the Justin multi-use path here, which connects the Beltline all the way across Terry Street and beyond. You've got the Beltline path that comes all the way up here to Jerry's. Terry Street goes down, as we saw earlier, and connects at Roosevelt, which not right there, but another couple of blocks up past Beltline has a separated protected path. And then, of course, it connects over to the Fern Ridge path too. Terry Street's actually as a whole, this really kind of key north-south artery tying together, kind of completing a square here, as a, kind of major arterial area around the northwest. Plus, this is pointing into this, Greenfield UGB expansion, and it just seems like a real opportunity to think about how we can have, these other paths are all protected. How can we have, a protected experience on this one side on Terry Street? I also think about two other things related. One is, someone just mentioned, well, this is a long way out here, it would be a long ride, but it's not if you live in Bethel. If you live in Bethel, you're right here. And in fact, if you live in Bethel and you worked at the airport, you're actually a relatively easy bike ride to get there if you could, from Bethel, which you right now is kind of hard unless you get out to Green Hill Road and ride on that. And, I feel like we should be thinking about this as an opportunity to really connect Bethel all the way through this new Greenfield area up to the airport and through these light industrial areas. I was in the Netherlands recently, and their light industrial areas have a separated cycle system that you can get into them on. Like you don't have to get in on the roads with the cars. You can bike into them and go to work. And I think if the city is really serious about trying to move travel mode out of cars and into onto bikes or heads or whatever else, we should take advantage of somewhere that we don't have to retrofit, like make this happen. Rob, what can we do to make it happen as a separated, protected network that can really take advantage of what we're doing on Terry Street to help create a protected network in Northwestern Union that would allow people to get to work, airport, light industrial areas, or just to travel through this area without having to compete with cars.
I think the TSP would be an opportunity to talk about that and the big ideas. If you could go forward one slide below, I think, there might be some opportunities to have. I'm not, the Justin path is down here, and that's a relatively new path. And just having, there might be some opportunities to have some connectivity through the park too. So, and then eventually too, we're planning to, well, again, off in the future, but the city will take ownership of Clear Lake Road. We'd like to redesign that too, from Terry to Highway 99 to be a more livable street.
That's great.
But all this stuff costs a lot of money, so that's
right. No, but streets cost more money than bike paths, and I feel like, so if someone came up with the idea, we're going to extend Terry Street, thinking about cars really, and then the bike path is sort of like, well, we could also put a bike path along. How can we in the planning process start with, hey, we really want people to bike, let's start with the let's start at the beginning, thinking about how we're going to get cyclists through here.
Good point though. We got some other cards up here.
Yes, I'll go, I didn't see which one went up early. Nancy, I will go for you first and then I'll.
I think that engaging with the planning of this, this park area, it should be a really high priority when this park is developed to include in the development of the park, the promotion and the actuality of being able to reach it, not in a car. Yeah. If this is built out with a lot of attractions to be a high use area, right now it's birding, walking, that it really, it would just make sense in a big picture way to prioritize biking, not just past here and up to the airport, but to this recreation area.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I just want to say, like, this is seen as a regional facility. And like right now, Eugene does not have a single facility like this, so kids in Eugene are bused or carpool down to Medford or Salem or Corvallis or wherever to go to sports competitions. We don't have the ability to host them in Eugene on one site, the way these other communities do. Whether you agree with or not, whether we should do that, that was the decision made by our city council, was to make this a location for one of those sports facilities, but you can see there's still be a huge area in the middle that would be a natural area.
Yeah, I wasn't
point
arguing
is-
with.
well, no, I-
What they're doing with the
Right,
place. My point is that if this is going to be a built out facility, that building it out with really serious bike.
Right, agreed.
Infrastructure is a comprehensive thinking.
Yes, no, I completely agree, but well, I guess what I was trying to say, I thought maybe you were implying there should be like less parking or that, and that's.
Well, I would always say that.
I will say like the ATC several years ago is that we worked together on like advocating for less parking at Camas Community School. And they reduced the amount of parking there, so that, and you know, that was a community. Not people coming from far away, right? And so to me, like that was a good example of somewhere where, yes, let's have people less parking there.
Well, and why aren't we planning for, so this facility, it's gonna be this major sports thing. That's 2 days a week. So there's 5 other days of the week. It's just like the issue with Hilliard and Patterson. How we've planned this street for 20 minutes, 2 times a day, and it's way over,
Right.
it's too big, right?
Yeah.
So can we think about it that way too, which is 5 days a week, it's just the people who live in Bethel and the people who like to distance ride who are using it.
Well, no, and I agree with Nancy, that should have great bicycling and walking facilities for sure.
And to get there by a bike.
Connections into the neighborhood, connections to the more regional facilities.
Great. Another question from Hollis.
What is? The would. And the bird.
What if they use the driveway as a bike path?
That's an interesting idea. I was thinking about that earlier. I like that idea.
Would.
I think that's worth looking into.
And the. You. Under.
Go under Clear, so that you don't have to cross the traffic, is that, it's an interesting idea. It's really expensive to build what we call grade separated facilities. But I like the idea of extending it, and like someday we'll look at redesigning Clear Lake. So yeah, it's an interesting idea.
Right. Peter, we might be able to move on, and we might move on.
Yeah, two things. One, yeah, if we're extending roads, definitely trying to have them protected bike lanes is huge. But the other thing is like, I see a big parking lot here and also a street that could run through the park. I wonder if saying all that parking that would be in that parking lot could be parking spaces along this street.
Mm.
And so that could be a way to sell it, is having less parking lots, having more wetlands by having more street parking, which takes less square footage to have street parking compared to a parking lot for cars that parked. But if you do that, then making sure it's a bike lane, so south of here on Terry, there's a problem with parked cars and bike lanes causing conflict.
It's an interesting idea. If we go with one of those alignments that goes through the park, which we
Yeah.
probably won't, but we might. So,
Yeah, if we did,
Yeah.
having street parking might reduce the amount of parking lots.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really good idea.
All right.
We're moving forward, like, are we planning to sort of like start a planning process for Terry?
We haven't really gotten that far yet. We just got the grant, but we need to, you know, something will be to start mapping that out.
Yeah, and do we have a planner that's like assigned? to
No.
that? So we're still really early stages.
Yeah, it's really, really.
Very much appreciate the opportunity to hear about it though at the very earliest stage, so that, you know, we can go ahead and start then. Start making your life unpleasant by advocating for more bicycle stuff. So thanks for coming to chat about it. And I know that it's a smaller thing, but there is a repaving project in on the northern part of the existing part of Terry coming up soon, right?
I think we just pushed it off a year, but yes. Also, the county has funds to repave Clear Lake Road.
Mhm.
So,
any opportunities to make changes there, or it's not gonna be like 24?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean,
I brought it up to Katie and
Yeah.
she said that there's definitely opportunity to look at like the curb to curb, what's happening there with the striping during the repaving process. Yeah.
yeah,
But
we
I,
all-
and I noticed along that northern stretch, the property fence lines are way back from the road, as if the city right of way is really wide
Okay.
there. Is that, you know if that's true or not?
It could be, there are like subdivisions where there's no, people don't have their driveways on the street, but they're off of like the interior. And, but you know, to move a sidewalk or a curb, I mean, those are really.
You know, I know that would be
That's
part of
a
every
paving
paving
project. Paving project is the easiest thing to look at is moving the striping, so we're gonna need to redo the striping. So typically, when we repave a street, we'll be like, how wide is the vehicle lane? How narrow can we make it, and how wide can we make the bike lane? If we make the bike lane wide enough, then we can actually buffer it. Those are the kinds of questions that
Oh, yeah.
we ask ourselves when we're looking at.
And I didn't mean to imply that anything else should be done. I'm still thinking kind of long-term, Terry, is this major, potentially major north-south corridor. It'd be
Right.
great to have a protected bicycle facility that uses it or parallels it.
Right.
And those extra wide right-of-ways, if they're actually there, you know, provide that opportunity for someday in the future,
Right.
having that separated facility along there. And so I'm dreaming.
Yeah.
Dreaming that could happen.
Um,
Okay,
And
if
that
you
might
have-
be that TSP, like
Yeah,
making
level thing.
changes to existing streets. We might be able to have that conversation for
Yeah.
the TSP update.
And we do have still a minute left on this topic, Nancy.
You said that Clear Lake is a high crash, road.
I believe so.
Is it, would it be possible, since one of the things you're thinking about is roundabouts, that to put in a quick build or some kind of a temporary roundabouts in those areas? When we're doing repaving, so that you could like put something in to slow the traffic before you do any of the rest of this?
Couple things. First of all, it's a county road, so it's not ours right now. Secondly, they are gonna look at putting a roundabout at Green Hill Road, but I think, at Clear Lake, and there's a traffic signal there right now. So they will be looking at that. I don't know if they kind of, I think that's more, as part of the study they're doing, I don't think roundabouts are expensive. I don't think that's something they can do as part of their paving project. And roundabout needs too much room to do a quick build at a higher, especially at those two higher speed streets or roads, as they call them. You know, it's easier to do like a traffic circle, like we have one at Clark and Adams in the Winter neighborhood, when there's these lower speed streets that come together, we don't need nearly as much room.
Yeah, right, you need quite a bit of turning space there. Rob, thanks again for coming to chat about this early on in the process. We gave you a list of miscellaneous things
Sure.
to provide updates on.
Okay, let's do it.
right.
Beltline Bike Ped Bridge. So some of you may have heard, we had big plans to build a pedestrian bicycle bridge over Beltline to connect North Union High School to the Santa Clara neighborhood. The costs kept going up to the point that even though we had some grants, we didn't see a path forward to being able to afford it. There were also challenges around needing to acquire a private property to basically tear down and to build a connection to the neighborhood street. So our leadership decided that we couldn't move forward with that, but we identified that there's actually an undercrossing at Beltline a little further to the west, or I think about half a mile further to the west. And so we're actually looking into the idea of building an undercrossing at Beltline that's for walking and biking rather than an overcrossing. And so we're trying to get funding from ODOT. We're trying to take the much larger grant of $6 million that we're gonna have to give up to do a smaller feasibility study to see if it's viable to do this undercrossing. If they say no, we might just use city funds to do it. And then we'll find out. I did speak to a joint meeting of the River Road and Santa Clara neighborhoods that was looking at their neighborhood plan implementation, and people there were supportive. And actually, there was a guy there who works for EWEB who said that he doesn't live in that neighborhood, but he says he has friends who grew up there and they used to bike or walk under Beltline. There's like a little creek there, so it's a little, it's always hard to build a bike path next to a creek because creeks flood. But there's a little creek there, and that's why there's a bridge basically that has an undercrossing. And Shane Rhodes and our team actually went under it several years ago, and he was starting to scope out this project. But since then, ODOT has fenced it, probably because there were unhoused people camping there. But we're still, Catherine and our team just sent an email to the ODOT staff person in charge of maintenance, so we can try to get a better understanding of whether they would allow us to even look at doing this. what, trying to get an understanding why the fences were put in. But this guy who works for eWeb said he used to see kids going under there on their way to school, like not that long ago, until got fenced it a few years ago. So that's our hope, is that we can make that work. It's not as good a location because it's further west, but it's still better than not having anything at all. And we wouldn't have to, the city has a couple of access ways that go from the neighborhood street to the Bell Line right away, and the eWeb owns a property on the north side that we'd hope to be able to work with them, so we wouldn't have to buy any private property. Right, so, yeah.
Just thinking I could just, probably should have done this before we started talking, but this
Yeah,
is,
so, okay, so
this
that's
is kind
helpful.
of the area.
So this is where originally we were gonna put the bridge, like in this area here, and now we're looking, you can see this is where the undercrossing is, so we're looking at this area instead, and that's the eWeb facility.
One. And
eWeb facility. I think it's a reservoir that's like capped. So to help, yeah, so I think it's one of those eWeb reservoirs. My understanding. It might be a little.
Looks like, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's pretty sure that's what it is.
all right.
Railroad quiet zone is next.
That's the one I should have, it's my fault, I should have spent some time preparing for that one, but I can tell you what my understanding is just that. It's a slog, it's been really hard for us to work with Union Pacific. There's someone there now, though, who's working with us, like, who's actually engaging with us at Union Pacific, and we also have a consultant that we're working with. So we think that we're in a better place to move forward. We need more money, and so we'll be talking to city council about that. My guess is that we'll probably build it in phases. One thing I've been saying internally is like, we really need to prioritize the crossing of 8th and Hilliard with. Like, even if we just do that in the near term and don't get the quiet zone, that's a really high priority for people walking and biking across the railroad tracks, because it's awful right now. Like, it's awful to walk along or bike along Hilliard, because the way that it makes the path, you have to cross the railroad tracks twice, right? And it's really bad on the south side. Actually, do you want to go over there?
Oh, yeah.
Any of us who've been there, no.
So unfortunately, as well as doing that, we've had a lot of staff turnover. The engineer who was working on that just went to halftime, and so it's a little bit of a challenge right now. Like, we don't have the quiet zone assigned to anyone. So Katie Marwitz, our principal engineer, hopefully is working on it. But yeah, I mean, this is where, and the reason, it's kind of interesting reason why this street's not that old. When the federal courthouse was built, this street was built in like 2008 or something. It didn't exist before that. And it was part of the deal to get the federal courthouse here. This bike lane here was a mistake, by the way, and it really should have waited until we built a signal here. So there's a sign now that says bike lane closed. So when this was built, actually it was gonna be ODOT, Highway 99. ODOT owns 6 and 7 and Franklin. None of it had been transferred to the city yet. Now it's all city, so we had to go to their standard. So because there's a traffic signal here, if there was a pedestrian crossing at the signal and they had a walk signal, and then say some eWeb trucks, because this used to be eWeb, came along here, and they couldn't flip to a green until the whole countdown went through. And then the trucks could get hit by a train. And the problem is that this track equipment here, it doesn't detect the trains from that far away. It doesn't have good detection. So when we put the quiet zone in, we'll put in new detection to be able to tell that the trains are coming from further away, which will enable us to have a signal here. And then just have the path connect across. This is awful. This is like the worst thing ever. If anyone tried to go, it's terrible. So I'm hoping that, again, like, getting Union Pacific to agree to the plan. Just at least making sure we have enough money to build this. And that what we internally, they said this, Pearl and High, trying to get those 3 done first. Lincoln, I would put next. I mean, Lincoln's good, would be another good one, just because the pavement condition is awful and that would get fixed. Another thing Willow and I have been talking about is building a path connection here.
Yep.
And so that's something that, maybe we can wrap into it. Or maybe we can all go out and just like do it as a group project. No, I'm just kidding. But remember they built it, there was a temporary path here, right? Remember?
Yeah, and then they got rid of
And they
it.
tore it out. Anyway, so does that answer my own questions?
Sue's that completely.
I mean, cause I don't use that 90-degree thing, I cross the railroad tracks
Yeah.
and there's. Just a little more asphalt would make it so you could, you'd have a little more space and.
Right here, yeah, I know, over here,
it's-
I know,
there's
I've talked to the
a
engineer.
bit of asphalt here, and but
Oh.
you kinda gotta go.
We are
off
really
of it.
limited by what we can do. One good thing is like if you're biking here, this signal has really good detection. You can get a green real easily. And then it's pretty easy, just the cars here have to stop. You could just zoom up here and make a left, like it's not. It's,
Yeah.
that's not where you're going. Where are you going? Are you going south?
No, I'm going up that way.
Oh, you're going the opposite
I
direction.
go down.
Oh, God. Oh, I'm there. So that you can kind of do that.
To get
Oh,
from
yeah.
the street market to the.
You know what I would suggest doing? What I would suggest doing is looking for, making sure there's no cars coming, because there are often no cars coming here. And then there's a little driveway here, yeah, and then you could just hop into the street and go across.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Unless the cars are
Personally,
coming.
I know it's not all ages and abilities, right?
Yeah, I got to say.
I'm trying to Stu Walling though, okay? So anyway, yeah, I think when they have a red, the cars up in there, make a right. But yeah, we can't, we're really limited by what we can do to the railroad tracks too. Like, we can't just go out and throw stuff down in there right away.
So Rob, one other quick question, and then we do need to, and Peter's got one too. And then I know we have two other items on the list.
Right.
I think we'll flow over into the next agenda item to take care of them, but I ate this such, this turned into kind of a, with the protected bikeway, a pretty good crosstown, and making a smooth connection between 8 and this intersection and the riverfront path seems to me really important. And I hope that when, we get to the point where we're engineering this, that can be done. I mean, just the bike path you just built or signed and then closed off or signed off, even though it's kind of there. And even that does, that doesn't really completely do it. Like it takes you to somewhere where it's not that helpful for getting across. And it's, I guess, just thinking about that 8th Street connection to the riverfront path as being something that'd be nice to be smooth.
I agree. We
Yeah.
need to get it right. And so we'll need to engage you guys with like conceptual designs when we get closer. Yeah, I don't even understand what they were thinking with that bike lane going to the parking lot there, like what the vision is there.
Yeah.
So I mean, so maybe the bikes would have their own phase at the signal. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Peter, and then we
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, one of the most expensive things,
Oh, sorry, Carl, too.
yeah, like a one-way street way is the signals. So when a signal is put in there, I guess it already is, but if that gets changed, will it be built and be ready for Hilliard to be two-way?
Probably. Yeah, so the plan is to eventually make Hilliard two-way all the way from 6th and High. Okay, Carl?
Really quickly, if Willow would mind scrolling left a little bit, like Charlie said, I've come to find this is a great way to get from the Autzen neighborhood down straight to downtown. But when I get to on 8th and I get to Coburg, I get kind of stuck. I was wondering if you had a suggestion or you thought of what am I supposed to do to get across? Because I either I have to go across to the opposing traffic side and go and then find my way back to the right hand side, or I have to hope that a car is next to me to trigger the light so I can go with them. Across exactly where that arrow.
Well, it's a terrible story and I was not in favor of this, but we used to have a push button here for bikes and we took it out because some of our planners wanted to make it that you would do this.
Which I hate.
Come
so
back
much.
across and I didn't agree with that, but they were like, wow, I said, we gotta make it all ages and abilities and we don't want to take the bikes across in front of this. I'm like, so have you tried just triggering the loop with your bike?
Well, I see now that you explained it, if that's the case, that was supposed to stay on the left, then it's kind of a halfway, it's halfway applied because it doesn't seem to work. Because there really isn't no good way to shift me over back to the right hand side.
Well,
So,
yeah, I mean, it's
yeah.
both, see this little green thing here?
Yeah.
That's
That's
part of it, but let me ask you a question. Have you just tried triggering, going over the loop with your bike here?
I've tried to, I'm not always successful.
Oh, okay.
What I find is that there's no cars there, I will go ahead and go to the push
Got it.
button on the
Okay,
left hand
yeah.
side. And I'm totally willing to go as your engineers, they have thought of going that way, but it's not obvious to me how to do that.
And we even built one of, the sidewalk wasn't even that wide to begin with, and then we built one of these stormwater planters a little wider than the others, I'm just like. That's, we don't
It's a
always
bit
get it right.
frustrating. Yeah, this area kind of got botched a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah. So I wanted to make sure you were, it sounds like you're already aware.
Yeah, this is my daily commute to the
Oh.
office because I live in Springfield and I do find that the
Oh, yeah.
loop picks up my bike
Oh, that's good, yeah.
typically. But I don't stand right in the middle of the loop. I stand on the edge of the loop.
Yeah.
So that might help.
I'll give that-
Um,
Or like more-
Yeah. But yeah, it was nice when the push button was there. I was very depressed when they took that push
Yeah.
button.
Yeah.
Because that was
Oh,
super
can we push it
radical.
back?
Can it
Um,
put back in?
Maybe, I
Not
don't know.
easily.
We should look into it.
Yeah, the push button was, it was sad
Not
to see
easily.
that go.
That would solve my problem.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about Franklin Boulevard is like the bane of my existence. It's taken a really long time to do the traffic modeling to see how we can get the roundabouts to work well for everybody. And we're still in that process. So I just say, let's stay tuned. We don't really have much to say right now. We've scheduled a community open house twice and canceled it twice. And we're still waiting on more traffic modeling. That's basically it.
Yeah. I feel like one of the things I like to say about Franklin Boulevard is that it's like, it's a really big investment. And so the city's really taking our time to make sure that we're getting it right. And so we keep kind of going back and looking at the traffic modeling and then bringing it to partners, having concerns and then going back. But I think that because it's such a big investment, like we want to be doing that due diligence so that when we finally do have that final product, we feel really, really confident that it's the right choice. So that's where we're at with Franklin Boulevard, is kind of in this seemingly never-ending loop of going back and looking at stuff, but we are gonna get out of that loop eventually and have something we're feeling really good about to share with the community.
Including the bicycle pedestrian facilities.
Yeah. Last thing on here is quick.
Quick bill, so I don't know how much you all know that we have access to funding, to sort of like, not funding from LCOG, but basically they have a grant that they can buy like flexible bollards that we can then use, deploy for like, especially for like build or pilot projects. So we got some of those that we then gave to the university and then they installed them on Agate Street. Are folks familiar with that? Because that was the location in my time in Eugene where there had been the most people parking in bike lanes for different reasons. So we have the ability to access more of those kinds of funds. What we don't have is the money, we don't have very much money right now to actually do the implementation. But so we are looking into the potential to do something similar on Patterson Street between 19th and 24th. Using those quick build resources from LCOG. The university's offered to help, so they might be able to install the bollards for us because they installed the ones on Agate. And I need to talk to them about that, but they've said, what can we do? Dave Reeser at the university was like, what can we do to help? And so my ask of him will be, if we can pull a project together in Patterson, could you install the bollards? And so we're looking into the idea of a quick build project on Patterson that at a high level would entail only having one southbound lane south of 19th. And then we would have a bike lane along the curb and then like a floating parking lane that would start south of the bus stop that sits out there. And so be a parking protected bike lane, but it would also have like a buffer with those flexible bollards in it. We probably have to take parking off the west side of Patterson, then from 23rd to 24th, so the bike lane could continue all the way to 24th, because it wouldn't make sense to have a bike lane just from 19th to 23rd. And we might also carry, depending on what we can afford, just carry one vehicle lane through that curve. So, and then it would still be 2 lanes approaching the signal at 24th. But we have to figure out how to pay for all this. So again, like if we can get LCOG to give us the flexible bollards, the university to install them, then the city would just have to figure out how to pay for the striping. So that's kind of the idea that we're looking into, but at this point, we don't have no guarantees. We had hoped to apply for a Safe Routes to School quick response grant, and then the legislature canceled that program for a year. So that opportunity went away.
One thing that people often think of as quick build is striping, but on our experience, paint is not a quick build option. In order to change the striping on a street, you have to grind out the existing striping and you have to contract the new striping. And even just for that 4 blocks of Patterson for changing striping, the bill came to be around $500,000, which is not an easy or cheap quick build option. It's an expensive and an significant investment by the city to make a change. So sometimes people are like, why can't you just change the paint? The paint isn't just paint. It's like, it's thermoplastic and it's kind of a big infrastructure investment, so just something to keep in mind.
We can't just all get out there with our blood.
Yeah, right. I wish we could.
Guinness black spray paint.
Yeah, but easy, yeah, if you can't like one car would drive on that and the black.
No, I'm joking,
But the city, the city is continuing to pursue the conversation around Patterson, but no easy or super fast answers, but definitely working on it the best we can. And we'll hopefully have a written response to you about the letter that you all gave us, in the next couple months.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it might not have anything super fascinating in it, it might be like, we're working on this and we hear you, but.
Well, I'm excited that the city is looking at doing something there and thinking about how to work with the university and such. I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing I think we're envisioning when we sent the letter, so.
And I think, at a high level, like, when there's a fatality, we look at, are the signs and markings, like, are they to our standard? And then the next question is, is there a design issue here that we need to look at? So we are thinking about those kinds of things. I think that, and like, we already have plans to make changes at Hilliard and 8th. And where there was another fatality of a university student, and then, we've had a bunch of fatalities in Highway 99. We're just starting a safety study on Highway 99 and River Road. So I think, we're responding to, sometimes it's more longer term though. Like, there's not a quick intervention we can do. So,
Okay.
That gets us through our list for Rob.
It gets to our list that I think we can have endless more conversation on all these points, but we're actually out of time for the
okay,
meeting.
and I'm happy to come back if you
Yeah.
develop a new list, so
Um,
just let me know.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks,
careful
Rob.
about offering.
Appreciate your time.
We'll put the list together. So, we only have a couple of minutes left. We had on the agenda still, May is Bike Month, which at this point I might just say, May is Bike Month, and there'll be activities going on in schedule. And Times have talked about trying to do something as ATC. In some ways, we're not really well set up for that. Last year, there was an infrastructure ride we wanted to do to go out and look at one of the projects the city was looking at on North Delta Highway, and we set that up. I don't know that we've done the pre-work or organize that to really think about how to put that together in the last 60 seconds of this meeting. What's the website where the May is Bike Month?
Yeah, May's Bike Month is webikeLane.org.
Yeah,
I'll put it in the notes, webikeLane.org. There are a ton of events happening during Bike Month. The one thing I put on your guys' calendars is April 30th is the May's Bike Month kickoff party at Oakshire. And that is really festive. It's like where a lot of the cycling people in the city, like, we're all in the same place at the same time. And it's not just the usual faces, it's like families and people from across the city convene there to sort of celebrate the kickoff of May's Bike Month. So that's kind of our flagship
What
event.
time is that?
I'm not exactly sure. It would be on We Bike Lane
I
evening.
think it's at 4 p.m.
Okay, yeah, 4 to 7, something like that. Yeah. So, and drop in, of course, is just, grab a drink of food and join us.
all right.
Do we want to get a BPAC?
Yes, I did want to call, that was the other thing I wanted to make sure we touch base. Brenda's here from Springfield, Speedpack.
I'm here
And-
too, I'm Devin.
Oh, Devin.
Hi, Devin.
We're both from Springfield.
Yep. Oh, good to meet you, Devin.
Nice to meet you.
And our official reps now are Peter, who left, right? And but yes, anything you'd like to share?
So Hollis brought up last month about the bike paths and the David chairs. As far as he thought it was illegal to be on the soft paths, which it is not, Springfield does not have a law. They're mostly owned by Willamette Lane. And I brought there for you, and I highlighted everything, where your wheelchairs and all the type of electrical, motorized hoverboards and all that stuff can go on those, as long as they're not modified, they're just at safety limits and stuff like that.
But I do. But
The BART paths,
me.
Is
the bike paths are most all owned by Willamette.
but the, because yeah, um, I tried to get the like
Good to set up a right.
mean
He's good to set up rights.
So I reached out to our, contact at William Lane. Simon, yes, and he's actually been talking with somebody, I'm not sure exactly who it is, but they said they're out and they're waiting for him to get back to them to get that set up. Further, they're getting it set up at Doris Ranch. And they're gonna get it set up a couple other places in Springfield.
Paulus, we're at time, so I think I might have you guys take this offline. Are there other VPAC updates that you want to share?
That was really.
Okay, cool.
Well, thanks again for coming and following through on the questions asked last time. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I agree, I'll probably bending your ear here. But, yeah. All right, everyone, thanks. We'll call that good for the evening. Okay.